So here it is, a Tuesday afternoon here in upstate New York, Binghamton, where I live. And it's cloudy and rainy and cold. So I'm kind of bundled up and the dog's in her bed, and we're probably not going to go out and walk today, folks. This is Yvonne DeVita from Smart Conversations, and that's my little whiny thing about Binghamton's weather, because I miss my weather in Colorado. And today, I have a little bit of Colorado with me. Today, my guest, Marnie Vincolisi, is going to talk to us about spiritual, our spiritual health, and about a book that she wrote. And I mean, the book, Marnie, we're going to talk a lot about the book, because that, to me, that plays into everything that you do. So welcome to the show, Marnie.
Thank you. I am bringing you some sunshine from Colorado.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's brightening up out there. I think it's working. Let me tell everybody a little bit more about you, because this is really going to be one of my more fantastic conversations today, folks. Marnie Vincolisi draws upon her decades of knowledge and practice of holistic healing. Her refined intuitive abilities guide others to understand clearly how to balance their emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual presence. So I'm reading from Marnie's book, which we're going to talk about. They did the best they could. Let me tell you a little bit about the book before we get going. This inspirational hybrid, combining memoir with practical spiritual advice, finds Marnie, author of Finding Your Inner Gift and more. She has other really, really great books, fantastic books. It finds her revealing the story of meeting her father for the first time in her 40s, and then delving into family and personal history, complete with photos and a family tree, tracing her lineage back to Italy. See how she and her family coped and rose above the challenging issues that are familiar to many of us today. This book is a really sincere and heartfelt and rather warm look inside your family and what you have lived and what you discovered after 40 years, Marnie. But before we get into the book, because I'm actually going to read, folks, I'm going to read from the book, and then we're going to talk more about the book and the purpose and all that things. Before that, let's talk about you. Let's talk about how you got into being who you are today. Tell us your backstory.
Oh, golly. Okay. Well, let's see. I grew up in Chicago, and an Italian side of the city, yet I wasn't connected with my Italian family at that time. I was a hairdresser, learned how to be an entrepreneur in my 20s, because if you don't work, you work on straight commission. And so it showed me how to create my own business. And after that job, I couldn't go and take a job at, $10 an hour, $15 an hour. It just didn't make any sense. I knew what I could bring in. So from there, I created a toy company. I actually tried real estate for a short time. That didn't work so well. But I did a toy company, and I had a small cottage industry, had about 25 people working for me. And not in my home, but they would come by and pick up products and put them together. And the company was called Pee Wee Teepee. And I made little play tents for kids. And because I understood energy at the time, I would fill those tents with a beautiful violet light. And my intention was this would be a safe haven for children to play when disturbing things happen in the house. And as parents, things happen, and children get upset and we don't even realize that they're there. It doesn't even have to be abuse. So this was like a safe place for them. But after 15 years of running that company, I started getting a message that I should be doing something different. But I didn't know what that was. And I was making a good income. So why quit now? But I look for messages. Messages come to us from all avenues. And my message was coming through my van. I put 40,000 miles on that van every year, and it never broke down. All those 15 years, it never broke down outside and left me stranded. And even that year it didn't, but it did start breaking down, but it would break down in front of gas stations. I mean, I would coast into these places. It was just amazing, but I still wasn't paying attention. I was like, yeah, I'll think of something else to do at some time. And the one that really got my attention was I was heading to Chicago to do a Christmas show. I sold toys. This was a big deal. And then I would head over to Texas and then come back home. Well, in the middle of Nebraska, my wheels started making this grinding noise. And I pulled it off into a small town. There was one cafe, not a restaurant, a cafe, one motel, and one gas station. And there was a mechanic there. We unhitched my trailer, we put the van on the hoist, and we lifted it up, and the wheel fell off onto the ground.
Oh, mm.
Yes. And the mechanic said, lady, there was an angel holding this wheel on. I said, yes, I know, I put her there. And I often wonder, here in Colorado, we have icy weather. I'm sure you have rainy weather. So I often put angels on my wheels. And as they're on the wheels, they sort of go ka-thump, 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 but they don't seem to mind. Anyways, the bearing was fried. I said, check the other bearing. He said, oh, ma'am, they don't go out at the same time. I said, let's try. Sure enough, he said, you wouldn't have made it 30 miles on that bearing. So small town, they don't have the part. By the time he ordered the part, got it in, put it on the van, the show would be just about over in Chicago. And I realized this was a big message. So I checked into what appeared to be the Bates Motel. I looked around. I said, okay, it's not scary. It's clean. I can stay here. And I can see myself now. I sat down on the bed. I looked up in the sky and I said, I'm listening. I quit right now. And I quit that moment. They repaired my car. I drove back home. As I crossed the border of Colorado, I began to cry because I didn't realize how stressed I was doing this business and what a relief it was knowing that I didn't have to do it anymore.
Wow.
So it took 9 months, which is an interesting gestation period, for me to find my next vocation. And someone had suggested Reiki to me 5 years before. And I thumbed through the book and I said, I'm not a healer. I threw it away. I said, that's not for me. But somehow at this point, it made sense. And I was like, okay, Reiki, maybe I should do that. And my friend that suggested it suggested that I travel to her Reiki master, who happened to be in Frankfurt, Germany.
Wow.
I've never been out of the country.
Wow.
Yeah, in Colorado, we have a town named Boulder. It's very metaphysical. You could throw a rock in any direction and hit a Reiki master. But I didn't go to Boulder. I jumped on a plane and went to Frankfurt.
Man.
And it was pretty amazing. I must say, I went there for another reason other than learning Reiki, for sure. And some other time, perhaps we can talk about that. I hit some past lives that I had seen in meditations before, and I was on those locations in Germany. I stood in front of a church and sobbed. I could feel the energy. I cried when I hit a place that I was at before. But that's a different story. So I learned Reiki. I want to tell the listeners this, there's an energy transfer that happens when you get attuned to Reiki. That's what brings in the energy and gets you connected to the universal life force that you're pulling in through your body and sending out to others. It's infinite divine love. I didn't feel anything during the attunement. I didn't feel energy in my hands, but in my heart, I knew this was it. I felt something in my heart. And I came home, I said, this is it. This is my new business. I'm going to learn how to do this. It took me, all of that year to go through all the classes. And once I did, I started writing my books, and I've been teaching Reiki ever since. And it's almost been 3 decades.
Wow, that is really quite an amazing story. I was kind of getting chills there. I think that too many people don't listen when the universe speaks. And we're you and I were saying the universe because that is how most people would understand. That's a word that is relevant to people. Other people would call it some kind of spiritual name, perhaps, whatever it is. But I agree with you. I think that we are told. I think that if we open our heart and our soul and ourselves up to listening and then paying attention, the same kind of things will happen. And so now that you're doing and have been doing this kind of work for so long, talk a little bit about some of the healing and some of the ways that you can open people up to better mental, physical, and spiritual health.
So a lot of people don't understand what Reiki actually is.
Yeah.
It's a hands-on healing modality to relieve stress and pain. And, people sort of understand it as healing, but it is so way beyond that. This is a class in awareness. I teach the class, and my courses online are all guided towards everyday life. How would life be different if you could perceive what was really going on back behind the scenes? Think of the stress that you could release if you weren't judging why that person did that. It's like, wait a minute, that person did that because this person did that to them and this happened. And it's like Reiki raises the vibration of your body. It raises that frequency. So now you're in situations above it, looking down. And as you look down, you can see all aspects. And even if you don't understand everything about that person, it puts you into a place of compassion so that you can let go of the triggers that are going on. And so my latest book, They Did the Best They Could, is about discovering your path to compassion. And it's very universal in that the stories that happen to me happens to everyone. Different pictures, different characters, different places, but our hearts have been hurt in similar ways. And no one means to hurt us. If the meaner they are, the more they hurt. And so if we can see that, and Reiki gives you that ability. So as a Reiki master, I have the ability to channel infinite divine love into your body. And with the guidance that I'm putting in there, it opens up your energy field. There are energy centers in our body. There's one at the top of our head, and I'm energetically opening up that energy field and pouring that infinite love into the body. There's guidance that I give the students, but basically it's all about just opening your heart. And how much better would life be if we walk through life with an open heart?
Absolutely, absolutely. I look back, and my mother wasn't the nicest person. I've talked about this a little bit in other places. And I was the chosen child that she would vent her unhappiness on. And it took me many years to understand that that's what it was, that she was miserable. And so I was her not punching bags, but so to speak. And as I got to be older, I think around 50 and getting up there, I started to think, why was she that way? What happened to her? And could I understand her better if I could learn that? By then she was quite old, and she didn't talk a lot about her childhood other than growing up in a household full of she had like 13 brothers and sisters or something. And and they were very poor. And she was relegated to, because she was one of the oldest, she was relegated to taking care of the younger kids. And so anyway, I just thought to myself, I wish I had asked her more questions about being a young person, and being able then to understand. But I want now to talk about the book a little bit, and this is the book, everyone. It's called They Did the Best They Could, Discovering Your Path to Compassion. And I want to read a passage from it, Marnie, that you and I can then talk about, because it's relevant to what you said and to what I've been speaking about here. And the jingle jangle is my dog. We'll just ignore her. She's like looking in the door saying, "What you doing in there?" Doing nothing, Em. You can go lie down. All right, so I want to read this, everyone, from chapter 9, and the title is Struggles. My parents married in June of 1946 and had their first child, my brother Jim, in March of 1947. But their home had little joy by Christmas of that year. Troubles were brewing. Mom's heart was depleted of the happiness she had had a brief time before, and thus she made her decision. Mom, 4 months pregnant with me, exhausted from caring for my brother Jim, who was a 9-month-old, filed her separation papers on December 26th. Now what? Mom could not support herself and her baby. Therefore, the only solution she could see was to move back into the loving embrace of her mother and father in their small 2-bedroom apartment. No doubt it was a humiliating act for this proud woman. I wanted to read that part because the experience that I had with my mother and in the book, you talk a lot about your mother and the experiences that you had and how then you finally found your father. Well, my father also was, he was there, but I didn't know he was my father. I was misled into thinking my stepfather was my father. And then at 12, my sister told me, no, that's not true. He's not your father. My dad, she lived with my dad, not with us. He's your dad. And so talk about confusion. But talk about some of the reasons that you wrote the book, because the book is so important. And I agree with you. It is so much, it's full of this wonderful emotion that will make you laugh and cry throughout everyone. I want to say that, but it's so personal to everyone who reads it.
I wanted to make the book interesting, and I don't want to give away the first chapter because it's been called riveting. It just takes you through what I went through meeting my father. But when I would share that story with people, they would look at me with tears in their eyes and say, "You've got to write a book." And right after the incident happened with meeting my father, I wrote it down. I still have the paper of, what I scribbled on the back of a sheet that I had, but I wanted to remember all those fine details of how it went down. And I began to learn stories about my Italian side of the family. And, the reason I can tell stories so well is I'm half Irish and half English. And who could tell a yarn better than the Irish, and they have a little wit in there. So I've got that going. And the Italian we're so emotional, that all of that comes through. So it works very well as a writer, which I didn't realize I was, but things come through as you get older. So I put down the stories. I found stories that happened with my Italian side of the family, synchronicities that are just too bizarre to make up. I mean, you can't believe, I couldn't believe how these stories were connected, and the little bits and pieces I had. And then when I talked to the other side of the family, I get this whole array of information that's way different than what was expressed. And it allowed me to really see these people in just a whole different light. I really didn't have an opinion about the Italian side of my family. I didn't really dislike my father. How could I hate someone I never met? So that wasn't, but that's how I felt. So that's why I felt writing it. And because I'm a spiritual guide, I counsel people, I help them see another way in life, but also because I know how to channel energy through Reiki, I not only give people a different perspective, I clear their timelines, I clear their energy fields so they can actually step into that place of actually seeing what I'm seeing, seeing that other side. We sort of work in tandem together. So the second half of the book is all about guidance on when a similar situation happened to you, what do you do with it? So I've got processes that I use with my clients, guided imagery meditations, self-hypnosis scripts. And so I always want to give my clients something, before they leave. When they come for an hour treatment, it's not just about, let's talk about your problems. It's like, let's talk about it. Energetically, I'm going to help you clear it. We're going to do it together. And then how are you to keep this energy going? So it's about giving them a process of when you get stuck, this is what you do. Because, our issues are always there. We think, mine, abandonment. I've come in with abandonment. I've run it all my life. I see it in relationships that come in and out. And that will always be there. If someone says, oh, I'm going to clear that abandonment issue, you never have it again. No, it's always there, but it doesn't trigger me as long as it used to. I can
Mm,
see it. I sit there, I go, oh, wait a minute. I know what this is. And I can let it go. And that's what we're here for. We're here to learn and experience what we chose to experience and not hang on to it and not blame others for creating it.
that's
Yeah.
really pretty profound, to not blame others for creating it. I love the way in the book you really delve deeply into your feelings and what was happening when you finally discovered that your father was alive and that you could find him. And you talk in one part of the book about maybe having a guiding hand from somewhere else.
Oh, yes. I mean, and that was very exciting. When I met my father, he takes me over to the family. His sister had just passed on 2 weeks prior. And I walk into my uncle's house. My cousins are all there from all different parts of the country where they moved to, but everything was back because of Aunt Joanne's passing. And I walk into the room, I say few words, hardly anything at all. And they're going, she's just like Joanne. She's just like Joanne. I was like, what are they talking about? I mean, they could see me, her in me.
Mhm.
And they also said, Joanne brought you to us. And I thought, wow, my family, or that I lived with, never thought about metaphysics or spirits could talk from the other
Mhm.
side. And here I am stepping into a family where they believe that spirits can connect here and move energies and bring people together. I was like, cool. I think I'm in the right place. It was very exciting. It was very
Yeah,
heartwarming.
it seems so. I mean, it seems so in the book. And I think also I love the way that you talked about your mother, but you weren't I didn't see a lot of anger. More curiosity, like why exactly did she keep this roll up or whatever it was. I don't want to give things away either. I really recommend getting the book because it's a fantastic summer read, and it's a memoir wrapped into a novel, wrapped into a way to look at your own inner feelings about your family. So, because family is everything, right? I mean, if we all come down to the very basic, it all revolves around family.
And sometimes our family is not there for us. And it still evolves around family because it's our way. What I discovered is because I didn't have the love of a father, and I'm sure my mom loved me, but she was just so stressed as a single mom, in the 50s
Mhm.
that she really didn't express it. And my grandmother, took care of us when my mom worked, and she was also very stressed and very controlling. And so what happened was we didn't feel love around us and around me. And so I had to go to a higher source. And I went to spirit. As a child, it was God, but as I, moved into my late teens, I realized I sort of forgot about God and said, "Oh, that doesn't exist." And then I, child of the 60s, moving as a flower child, I started connecting with spirit and meditation. And as I got older, I realized if I had that love from that family, perhaps I wouldn't have looked outside of it. And I had to look outside of me, and then I had to look inside of me and know that the love I seek is the love that I am. And that's what I bring to people is, yes, we bring people in to comfort us and make us feel good, and we make them feel good. But bottom line, we're all we have. We're the thing. And if we can feel that love within ourselves, we can expand it out to others in a much more profound way, and not try to be codependent, I guess. Yeah.
Well, that brings me to the age-old question, because we hear that phrase so often. You can't love someone else until you learn to love yourself. So the question is, if you don't know how to do that, what do you do?
Well, it's, you find someone to help. You know, I mean, for myself, I looked into a lot of metaphysical avenues, and meditation, that stilling of the mind, allows that inner voice to come in and start directing you and telling you where to go. I mean, when I chose to quit my business, I had to go into complete trust. There was no other place to go. I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. I've got to trust this is the right way to go, and things will come to me. And that 9 months, it was amazing. I had no money coming in, and yet money came from sources. There was a boyfriend that showed up, knocked on my door, an old boyfriend, and he gave me $1,500. He said, I borrowed this from you a few years ago, and I wanted to give this back to you. I was like, okay, well, that paid all the bills for that month. I mean, just and so when you trust, you start getting messages. So that's why I say pay attention to these messages. You know, ask for simple things. You know, ask for, give me the quickest way to get home today. Show me what kumquat to pick, at the grocery store. What's the sweetest one? Use simple things, and then start recording those things of, oh, I intuitively picked this up, and so you're trusting your intuition by paying attention to, you always had it, and you're getting those messages all the time. So that intuition opens you up. And if you can trust that you can get things by putting out your energy for it, it's starting to bring in that self-love. It's like, oh, well, I can do this, I can do that. And that's why I like Reiki. When I learned it, like I said, I didn't feel a whole lot, but yet when I placed my hands on other people, they're going, I can feel that energy. Oh, your hands are really hot. I said, really? I thought they don't feel hot to me. And so I just kept using it and trusting it and getting messages back from people. And it's so freaking simple. I teach things that are easy. It's like, let's not spend years and years of studying. You can become a Reiki master in like, I'd say 4 to 6 months, you could be a Reiki master. There are people that teach it in a weekend. And yes, you can learn it, but it's the nuances that you're picking up that you need time for. The attunement turns you on to that energy right away. You'll feel it coming through your body. It never fails. And I do it online. I do it across the miles. I get people from Europe sending me back, emails saying, oh my gosh, I took your online class and this changed in my life, and that happened and this happened. And it was the same kind of stories that I was getting from people in person. So when I do, and someone was asking me about this, the attunement is the energy transfer. I said, how can you do that? Well, we know we can send energy across the miles. And as you look at the courses, you'll see PowerPoint presentations, you'll see me in classes teaching other people, but when it comes time, and you'll hear their questions, when it comes time for the attunement, you've got the energy of the people online that are being attuned. But I also, while I was doing that recording, sat down or stood behind an empty chair, and I attuned whoever was going to be watching that course. And I attuned them. And I mean, I could feel tons of energy coming through me as I did the process for them, as well as people getting the energy of what they're watching on the screen as well. So it's very, very powerful. And it shifts you right there. And it opens you up, and it opens your heart. How do you get your heart open? Sometimes you need someone to help you open that up.
Yes.
And then just,
yes.
yeah.
Perfect. And so these courses, by the way, everyone, are on Marnie's site. I will be sharing the link to them and in the blog post and on YouTube, so that you will all be able to access them. So Marnie, I mean,
And may I add one thing to that, is that on that course, I'm going to send Yvonne a code. And so if you put in this code, you will get those courses for 50% off.
Wow. Wow, that would be fantastic. Very.
And the code, the code is light up, all in caps, but you'll see it from Yvonne, because I'm going to send that out. And because I want to bring this energy to as many people as I can. It's important.
Well, and I think that's really, it's quite evident in the book also. So everyone, again, I'll hold the book up. It's they did the best they could, and you can go to Marnie's site. I'll get you the link. It's lightinternal.com, and really get the book, because once you read the book, you're going to want to take the courses. And the really powerful thing that I'm hearing, Marnie, is how we, just anybody, can take the courses if we're willing to listen and open our heart and actually do the work, and we can start feeling and sharing that energy also.
Exactly. And I don't like to see it as work. I like to see it as play. Play with the energy. I'm going to give you lots of information in the course of how to just mess around with it. You can't screw it up. You can't do it wrong. How can you channel love into yourself or into someone else? And oh, that's the wrong kind of love. It's like, what? All we're
Right.
doing is spreading love.
Right, right. I mean, so, but beyond that, even more so, as we're coming to the end of our time, I think that there is such a powerful spiritual essence about you ever since I've met you. I do feel that. And I want, maybe you can speak a little bit to that, because people today, sometimes they're reluctant to talk about that part of their health. They'll talk about their mental and their physical health, and they're dabbing into, well, their emotional. Well, spiritual health seems to be something that we think someone else should take care of.
Well, it's all tied together. You know, we're not just a physical body, we're an emotional body, which is a few inches off our skin, a mental body, which is a little further out, and our spiritual body is probably 18 to 36 inches out from there. So through Reiki, Reiki channels through all those bodies. So we're touching all those aspects of you. And as a spiritual practitioner and counselor, I'm able to tap into those parts and make you more aware. Like I say, it's all about awareness. If you're aware of what's off in your body and why, you can change it. You know, when people show up for counseling, and, you know, I do it online a lot, you know, especially with COVID, you know, it's so nice to be able to sit back in your own house. You don't have to spend time getting to the practitioner's office. You don't have to spend time driving to a course. It's all right there for you. You can sit there in your jammies and we can work. But, you know, that's how I see it happening energetically. And I guess I was gifted with all the things that happened to me in the book, as you look at, to be able to rise above all those things. And that's what created my spiritual presence, is to not judge and be angry and hold that anger about, you did this to me and why weren't you there? And, you know, this hurt. And it's like, yeah, it hurt. And I'm moving on. I'm moving past that. So that's how I see building a spiritual presence, is letting go of the anger and the judgment and the hurts that we have. And it's about seeing the other side. And I help people see that other side. When a client sits down and starts talking to me, as an intuitive, I can see that timeline and I can see where that issue is coming from. And we clear it and we talk about it. And people feel lighter and different when we get done.
Well, everyone, I just can't thank Marnie enough for being on the show today, because Marnie, so many people are searching today for this kind of help, and for that knowledge and that experience and that ability to tap into their spiritual side, what they don't know what that is. So I hope that some of what we've talked about today has helped. But Marnie, before we sign off, where can people find you and how can they get in touch with you?
Okay, well, the website, as you had mentioned, is Light Internal, because I know that we all have light within us, hence why I came up with the name lightinternal.com. Put Marnie Vincolisi, and you'll probably see that my name spelled out, but put that in YouTube. Marnie Vin is my Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. Marnie Vincolisi is there. I've done some TikToks. But my blog, I have an inspirational blog on my website. So if you go to my website, look at that inspirational blog, you'll get tons of information, healing codes to help move energy.
Mhm.
And please contact me and give me some questions and let me know what you'd like me to talk about or, you know, guide you with. I'd be happy to do that. So
Well, thank you.
lightinternal.com. Yeah.
Yes, I will share all of that so that you'll have the links. And Marnie, maybe we'll have to have you back and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the work that you do. And also, I think a little bit more about the book, because there were some parts of the book we didn't talk about. And I think the book is really a powerful story about, one woman's search for herself in a way, in a way for all of us to begin to understand that, maybe the people that you think hurt you were just doing the best they could, as Marnie says.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and perhaps shine a light on someone that's listening. That, I think just hearing it, people are going to start looking at a different way of understanding who brought pain to their heart, that they really did do the best they could.
Yeah, wonderful. So this is Yvonne DeVita from Smart Conversations, and we'll see you around next time, and maybe the sun will be out in Binghamton. We'll see.
Thank you.